Well, we are in game, so Roddy, why don't you take it away and introduce these two players?
It's your tournament, Madals. Why don't you do it? I just want to sit here and listen to you.
Okay, I'll do it this time. I like sharing. What can I say? I'm British. I'm very much like, no, you go first, and like having this nice order and the queuing system and things like that. It's
Oh,
hard to break it.
you've never been to Holland? We're very polite too.
Nothing on Canada though. Also, they like to think. Canada
No,
really
but
stole British people's like international reputation as being overly polite.
I don't know what kind of reputation you guys think you have, but when we think of the British, you just think of very loud people in a pub who drink a lot of beer and sing football songs. And there's nothing wrong with that. Those are people that are close to my heart. But polite is not really what I am.
Well, anyway, spawning in the lower right-hand position, playing for Team Acer. Currently 1-0 up in this series, now on the NA server, so hopefully we'll have lag issues fixed out. It is Scarlett. And up to the top right, playing for Team Liquid, going for a pool first opening this game, it's Snute. And I'll have you know, most British are very polite, Roddy.
I know.
We just get a bad rep because we're most famous for football, and a lot of our football fans tend to not be on their best behaviour when we go abroad to international competitions. At least during the 90s, they weren't.
I know. We've experienced it. You guys introduced hooliganism in my city actually in the 1970s. It's a long time ago. That was not a pleasant experience from what I heard. Obviously before my time. It's funny because I think the Dutch reputation in Spain is that Dutch people are very, very greedy because, Dutch tourists, they never tip and they always want to go to the cheapest place and stuff. So I know a lot of like holiday resorts in Spain are not huge on the Dutch tourists.
See, the
But
British, I think
overall,
we're just known as getting too drunk and getting sunburned. Like every holiday I've ever been on, there will always be British people who've drunk way too much on like a cheap bar compared to how expensive alcohol is in the UK, and completely not used to the sunshine. So there'll just be a lot of like very red, very sweaty, dehydrated people wandering about in a confused manner. But alas, one day our reputation will be for better things. But
yeah. Now you have Apollo carrying the torch.
oh yeah, we have Apollo. So
Apollo and Bling, you have two sex symbols of the scene. And the Muslim, of course, how can I forget?
exactly. To be fair, that's something which we should put up on posters. That should be like our motivational
Yeah.
things in schools. Is
You guys have three poster boys for the SC2 scene, that's for sure. Alright, let's focus on this ZvZ as the openings were slightly different. Snoot, of course, went for pool before Hedge. Scarlett decided to go with her Hedge first, not showing any fear. I can't really blame Snoot for going pool before Hedge because Scarlett is a Zerg player that loves 9 pool. I think we have seen that so many times, not just this year, but even last year. He already loved doing that stuff. So it makes sense that Snoot is not taking too much risk. And I also think it's something that Snoot kind of does in general. While Scarlett, it's either 9 pool or it's Hedge first. I don't really see her go pool before Hedge very often, unless she really knows something that we don't know.
well, for the moment, we're just seeing that actually Snoot has got quite a bit of information early on. He sent a couple of lings in immediately. Scarlett doesn't really have much information, and again, we're seeing Snoot go for this Baneling nest nice and early. He is
I
still...
also, I'm a little bit surprised. Snoot has 4 drones and his extractor, and needless to say, this is a small mistake, but it's also a very uncharacteristic mistake. And look at that super quick layer, by the way, for Scarlett. It's 5 minutes and 40 seconds. That really gives me the idea that she wants to play Mutalisk once more, something she has done very, very often on Catalina, and she's been very successful with. And that's a very strong style, and it's really important that Snoot picks up on this as soon as possible. Because if you see this too late, you will just be running behind the facts.
Okay, so little move in here by one of Snoot's overlords, but note Scarlett brought an overlord to get high ground vision. Before the overlord was pushed back by the queen, Snoot was able to see one of the additional gases, but not the fact that Scarlett's gone up to all 4. I don't think he's actually gone into the main to scout the second one there either. So maybe a little bit in the dark about exactly what his opponent's doing, but... Interestingly, going back, Snoot has still got those 4 drones in gas, which is very unfortunate for him.
Yep, he made 12 links, morphing 2 banelings now as well. Roach Warren is going down. Those 12 links might be frustrating, but shouldn't really be able to do a whole lot. I don't think that he wants to sacrifice them either. Scarlett decides to add her baneling nest. For a second I was like, the Roach Warren, that makes no sense. Like, nah, of course not. It's the Roach Warren of Snoot, and Scarlett is indeed going for the Spire, like I sort of predicted in the start of the game. Oh, I love when I'm writing ZvZ. Makes me feel like I know something about anything else in Protoss. So I have one up on Litot. I like to tease you on. I always say the last time Todd casted a non-Protoss game was during Warcraft 3.
See, I don't argue with Todd. He's literally double the size of me. So anyway, we just saw a couple of little Baneling engagements there. Nothing too crazy went on down. Actually, Snute lost quite a few of his Banelings there. So overall in resources lost. Not setting too pretty. Behind this, obviously he's going up into lair, trying to take his third base. Hasn't seen the lair of Scarlett yet, or really doesn't know anything about the fact that a Spire is coming on down.
Nope. He made a few more links now. He's morphing a few more Banelings, but I feel all this kind of stuff is just a little too late. By now, Scarlett has been able to produce quite a few defensive links on her own. She has a couple of Banelings as well. He might be able to cancel that third hatch. That's sort of nice. That's actually a pretty damn important pick-off, as we all know that 5th and 6th Extractor is really important when you want to play Madals. So that was an okay poke there for Snute, and he definitely got his money worth with his investment. And he's actually picking off quite a few of these Banelings as well. Move your Zerglings. Oh. Still okay. That's definitely important, because if he didn't get that, I think this would have been a very tricky game. And like I said, it would have been a very passive game for Snute. Now he's at least sitting on those 3 bases very comfortably. And I think by now he has kind of figured out what is going on, because he didn't really see a lot of Zerglings. He didn't see a lot of Banelings. He didn't see Roach Warren or Evolution Chamber. So I think he definitely pretty much knows.
He's going up into the Infestation Pit, which is going to be a really nice response to these mutas long term. Short term, we'll need to see a couple of Spore Crawlers thrown down just to give him some safety. But as you mentioned earlier, Roddy, the lack of the third base from Scarlett denies, obviously, that 5th and 6th gas, which is going to minimize the Mutalisk flock quite severely. So the Spores shouldn't have any trouble holding off these Mutalisks for quite a while. Snute, of course, knows about them now, starts up that Spore production instantly. And well, it's going to be up to Scarlett just to try and clear out this map, although there are many Overlords for Snute on the field. Only this one to the back as far as I can see.
Yeah, you say many, but it's only 2 actually. That's really not all that bad, because there are some of these scenarios where you see these Mutalisks pick off 5, 6, sometimes even 7 Overlords. Only 2 Overlords in ZvZ, and this phase in the game really gives me the idea that Snute was actually more than aware of this all along. Look at the production tab as well. We see that Hive going down already for Scarlett, so she's definitely aiming for that great Aspire play with the Brute Lords. It's a strong playstyle, but Snute has a pretty okay read on this all along. And now I wonder if he can hit some sort of a window with maybe Roach, Hydra, Infestor before those Brute Lords are out, that will allow him to win the game. Or Queens. He has a lot of Queens as well.
That's what I was just coming to. The Queen count is up at 8 at the moment for Snute, so he's actually got quite a good mobile defense up against these Mutalisks, at least while their numbers are a little bit lower. There's only 10 on the field for now. Main base is nicely covered. That Infestation Pit is exposed though.
He still has 4. He still has those 4 drones in the Extractor. He's literally had it throughout the entire game. That's not something you see very often.
It's interesting he does it, because it was obviously just a misclick, but to not notice is quite interesting at this stage. But preoccupied a bit with Mutalisks at the moment. Great Aspire actually coming down from Scarlett now. This is very interesting.
Yep, it's cool. Like I said before, she loves her Brood Lords on this map, and it's very strong. Brood Lords absolutely demolish Roach, Hydra, Infestor if she can get enough of it, if she can get enough time. Now Snute is getting his own Spire, which gives me the idea that maybe he wants to add in a few Corruptors in his attack. I'd be very surprised if it was for Madals, and that would almost make no sense. But even the Corruptors are in general not really necessary. Good cancel there on that 4th base by Scarlett. Even the Corruptors are not necessary if you would hit very hard and strong with Roach, Hydra, Infestor, and a bunch of Queens. But, you know, who am I to question Snute in ZvZ? So we will see. This is shaping up to be a pretty interesting ZvZ.
Now, good thing to note for Snute is his first few Infestors are actually coming on down. They're a little bit exposed in the center of the map right now. Good splitting by Scarlett. Is going to pull back, baits out a Fungal Growth that hits nothing. But still the Queens are there, and 8 Queens is certainly a good amount of damage output. They've got a huge amount of energy ready for transfuses now. But this Great Aspire for Scarlett is about to finish on up. She's sitting there with 7 Corruptors, immediately morphing into the Broodlords. And Snute doesn't really have an answer to this for now.
No, but it's Scarlett has not scouted the Spire of Snute, and I think it's pretty important that she does, because she's going to need an answer to those potential Corruptors, I still assume, of Snute. Anything else just really wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So, really interesting take on this by Snute, and then we do see him adding his Corruptors. Man, I'm really excited to see how this plays out, because I've never seen anybody, well, never is a big word, but in general I don't really see these Broodlord games of Scarlett play out like this. The majority of the times, the Zerg opponent of her just decides to hit with Roach Hider or Corruptor and either or Queens or a Nidus, you know, something crazy, and just tries to bust through, and it either works or doesn't. Most of the time it doesn't, because he's really good in holding stuff. But with the Corruptors in the mix, it kind of changes things for me. I haven't casted a whole lot of ZvZs like this, so now I'm getting generally interested.
It's going to be quite cool to see how it does play out. Now, it's worth noting that Snute was able to get vision that the Greater Spire was coming through, so that may have actually triggered the fact that he was going up with the Corruptors anyway. I don't think I saw it beforehand.
But Snute is also a guy that watches a crazy amount of StarCraft. Yep. He's not just very good at it, but he watches a lot. I know that he watches pretty much anything. Whenever I do something and I refer to a game, he always knows which game I'm talking about. There is a small circling skirmish on the left bottom side of the map, but the moral of that story for me is that I'm pretty sure that he has watched multiple Scarlett ZvZs that were played during Red Bull tournaments or whatever, and that he has seen her do this style a couple of times on Catalina. You know, if I know, then most of the time Snute knows as well.
So those Lings weren't able to achieve too much. Snute and Scarlett both sitting on 4 bases, although Snute just coming up to take his 5th. The Broodlords are going to have a tough time moving out at the moment because they're so slow to get across anywhere, and if we actually look at the composition of this army, the 10 Corruptors are out on the field for Snute. That's going to cause the Broodlords actually quite some difficulties. Scarlett is also busy spining up all of the bases, and I love this as a decision. It means that those little Zergling run-bys won't be effective, even if she does move across the map with these Broodlords.
Alright, there are 10 Corruptors in the middle. Did Scarlett ever see the Corruptors of Snute? I know she didn't see the Spire. Did she ever see the Corruptors? Because I have the feeling that she didn't.
I haven't seen it, but she could very well be about to spot it. Running in with some Zerglings now. I don't know if she got vision. These Corruptors just hiding back. It may have just been seen.
Snute is even getting a second Spire now. He's really pretty determined on his upgrades when it comes to the Spire stuff. He did finally remove that drone, by the way. I was really obsessed with that drone that was in the extractor, but he's back to 3 now. He's getting all the upgrades. Snute right now is that little meme, you know, get all the upgrades. He's getting +2 melee, he's getting carapace. I think he already had some missile attacks. Did he? No, actually it's just melee all along and carapace. Zergling skirmish on the left side of the map, which is relatively even. Maybe slightly go in favor of Snute, even though he had less Zerglings. He did have better upgrades on it, I believe. Yeah,
he's got the +1 carapace, whereas Scarlett's only got the +1 melee attack. Interesting the amount of infestors that are currently being produced on both sides. Scarlett actually going up to 10 infestors here, so a very, very late game, gas-heavy composition. How do you reckon this is going to work up against Snute? Because he's still got a decent counter Corruptors. His air upgrades are starting to look solid. He's got the +2/1 air upgrades being researched at the moment. What does Scarlett do from here?
I'm actually not 100% sure. I think she's a tiny bit confused because I think she's so used to Zerg players trying to attack her as well and trying to kill her before she has Broodlords. Then when that doesn't happen, that's suddenly like, okay, well then I guess I just get like my ultimate Zerg army, right? You get a bunch of infestors, you get your Broodlords, eventually maybe even a couple of Ultras, even though they're not very good. You know, against Broodlings and stuff, having Ultras, especially if you have Queens along as well, is always very useful. So, I don't know. I'm confused. It's really important that she gets a good feel for the Corruptor count of Snute, because I kind of feel if the armies would clash right now, that the 14 Corruptors of Snute will be able to just absolutely right-click on those Broodlords, and the rest of Snute's army is a little stronger than the rest of what Scarlett has, I think at least.
Yeah, I would agree with that, especially on the ground. There's one additional infestor for Snute, which isn't crazy, but he's also got a lot of Lings, now morphing in quite a few Banelings. And when we look at actually Scarlett's composition, she's nearly entirely committed to Skyzerg, Mutalisk, Broodlord, and a couple of Corruptors and the Infestors.
Yes, but she's also getting very good upgrades on her ground units though, so that's important to mention, because her 2/2 upgrades are about to finish up, so it's not like she's not going to
be some good baiting hits actually on the left here.
Yeah, reasonable connections there, but there's so much static D, and there are still a couple of Mutalisks as well, that even though this is a lot of Zerglings for Snute, I'm afraid that he might not, I don't think he will be able to overrun. Man, those spikes die really quick.
Well, it's Adrenal Glands on the Lings.
Upgrades. Jesus.
Adrenal Glands and +2. This is a very strong Zergling force from Snute at this stage. Picks off quite a lot of the static defense. Also pushing in from the right with a couple of Hydras, just sacrificing them as efficiently as possible. May get a Corruptor or two. Yeah. That isn't insignificant, picking those off.
Nope. Picking off one Corruptor, the second one took a lot of damage. Scarlett may be able to land in Transfuse. I think it's also very important to mention that Snute is still sitting on those 9 queens that he had throughout the entire game. 9 queens, with, which all will have like, you know, maybe 3-4 transfusions that could definitely play a major impact on the outcome of the next battle. I kind of feel that this is one of those games where it all comes down to one decisive battle, as he's adding in 6 more Infestors, and his greatest fire is on the way as well. The host Wings of Liberty Madals. Is that what's going on over here?
Got Scarlett pushing in. A couple of good fungal growths are going to lock down all of those Zerglings, though. Pick off a vast majority of them. Scarlett is going to have to contend with Snute's own Broodlord soon, so this really is going back into Wings of Liberty H. Broodlord Infestor for the win. And it's going to be tough taking an engagement here. Positioning is going to be absolutely essential when an engagement comes down. It may even come to who gets the best fungals.
Yep, it's going to be a little bit of everything. Transfusions, fungals, positioning, and above all, yeah, I think there is a lot of static defenses, right, on the side of Scarlett. Okay, that's definitely something that Scarlett has a huge defense in. While fungal growth does land on a couple of those brood coats. I always think it's so cute. It looks like they're wearing like little green coats, green body warmers. Love it.
I love fungals going down on overlords. I think that always looks really sweet, but you hardly ever get to see that. These broodlords just edging forward now. Getting in quite a great position. Snute could go for this. He's got a lot of corruptors here. The broodlords just getting shredded. A couple of fungals trying to hit the mark. Not really getting much with them, but that corrupt count is quite scary to Scarlett there. A few Vipers being added in as well. That's a very interesting choice.
Wow, is Scarlett actually on... Scarlett is currently sitting on 96 drones. How crazy is that? I didn't even see that. That's pretty intense.
She's got good bank.
Yeah, that means that Snute's army supply is quite a bit bigger, but once more, Scarlett has so much static defenses. He has 22 Spore Crawlers and 23 Spine Crawlers. That is definitely something he has a huge +1 up compared to Snute, but Snute has all those queens. The queens can be very useful as well, and he just added in 4 Vipers. This is a very difficult Zerg army to control, if you ask me. You know, it comes down to queens, infestors, vipers, all very fragile units that can all die. And even corruptors, they love to clump up, and a couple of fungals of your opponent can make you lose all your corruptors. So this is a pretty tense situation for both players. But Snute's army supply is a lot bigger, but of course, like we said, Scarlett has a lot more static defense. It's really hard to call.
What is very important right now is the base that Scarlett's attempting to take on the right here. Actually, never mind that. Snute's moving in. Goes for a couple of blinding clouds onto those spore crawlers. Chucks down a lot of infested terrans. A few fungal growths being forced now. The corruptors for Snute are forcing the broodlords away, but this is just an attempt by Snute to clear some of this static defense, but it's not going amazingly.
No, definitely not. He burned a crazy amount of energy over here, and I really felt he didn't get too much done. He even miscontrolled a couple of his infestors. He does land 1 fungal now on 3 of those infestors, but he has to be careful as the broodlords are getting closer. I think that he could have done a little more there with his corruptors. I felt that they were a little passive. Look at the infestors of Snute. They're really starting to take a lot of damage. And Scarlett is moving in forward, and she barely lost anything. And look at the massive bank that she is sitting on as well. 6,400 minerals, 8,000 gas. That's insane.
This is where things start getting very important for Scarlett with that bank, because she can actually afford to lose trickle amounts of this army, whereas Snute, he can't. He's actually broke when it comes to Vespium, which is going to make resupplying incredibly tough for him if these small trades keep on coming. As you mentioned as well, a huge amount of infestor energy went down there, Rotterdam, and that means that Snute is having to be very passive at the moment. Another thing I was trying to touch on before that engagement happened as well is this base over to the right for Scarlett. She can position herself to defend this base easily due to the spawn locations, while still assaulting in towards the third of Snute. Whereas Snute, if he wants to expand, it's got to be a long way away from these main engagements, which means that he becomes very vulnerable to Zergling one-bys.
I mean, the units lost resource that pretty much tells the entire story. 16,600 resources lost for Snute, 8,700 for Scarlett. Snute lost twice as much, while Scarlett has been mining more money the majority of this game. Now we truly have flashbacks to the Wings of Liberty era, as broodlords are just shooting at each other. That can go on forever, but I feel eventually Scarlett is just looking so solid. He has a small Zergling run by as well in the main base, and there are not really any units in position for Snute. So he might actually end up losing one of his spires, maybe even both of them. That would be a huge pick-off.
He's trying to get back with anything to defend. I think he's going to end up losing both of these spires, actually, Rotterdam. And this is incredibly frustrating for him. It basically stops him being able to resupply any more Broodlords. It stops him being able to produce any Corruptors, and that is vital for him at this stage. Scarlett is going to be exceptionally happy with that pick-off. Her Mutalisks are pushing in towards the 5th base of Snute as well, although there are a couple of Spore Coolers in position that should be able to shut that down. All in all, though, this is still an army that's bigger for Snute because he's 30 supply less in terms of the worker count. But the bank, it's 10k for Scarlett right now. She can take a bad trade and resupply so quick.
This might actually be Snoot's moment. He's coming in with all those Corruptors, a lot of Fungus roll in, and he just doesn't have the same amount of Infestor anymore as he had before. He should really start using his Queens as well. He could land a lot of Transfuse. I felt this went a lot better for Snute than it went before. Look at all these Corruptors, Madals. There are so many of them. Massive amount of corruption going down as well. That went okay for Snute, and he actually has quite a bit of money to work with as well, so that was something. That was a lot better than the first fight.
A good number of those Broodlords were taken down. Scarlett is resupplying with 11 Corruptors though. That's going to allow her to produce a good number more Broodlords. But bear in mind, Snute is still sitting up at 21 Corruptors himself. So air superiority is over on the Liquid Zerg side. Still pushing forward with more of these Corruptors. Big fungal growth from Scarlett. Catches a lot of them though. And many are incredibly low on health. That next fungal could end up picking off quite a few of them. Nice chain fungals from Scarlett.
Yeah, it's like 6-7 Corruptors. They're all so low on HP, but if Scarlett only would have had a couple of her own Corruptors shooting at it, it would have gone so much easier. Now a few of her Corruptors will start trickling in, and a few of those Corruptors from Snute will die. Snute still had to wait for his fire to be ready. Now finally it is ready, and he will start up 11 Corruptors, but I'm not sure if that's going to save his current Corruptors, as some of them are extremely low on HP. And all these Broodlords of Scarlett are still looking very healthy. She's still maxed out, has just a ridiculous amount of money in the bank. 11,000 minerals, 10,000 gas. Scarlett can truly do whatever she wants. It's her party.
Worth noting as well that the 8 Queens, which earlier you mentioned were so important, weren't engaged in that fight at all for Snute. They're full on energy. There could have been some very important transfuses there to keep a few more of those Corruptors up. They are now coming back into this fight, but look at the supply difference. Scarlett is ahead in both the army supply and worker supply. She's got nearly a 10k bank still. Snoot's going to try and go for this. But the Corruptors for Scarlett are there. There's more though for Snute.
Yep, there is static defense for Scarlett as well to just rely on. And during all this, he has Zerglings ravaging all of the additional bases of Snute. Snute doesn't really have a whole lot of Zerglings anymore on the map. Upgrades, they're even, I believe, on either side, as all of them have 3-3 upgrades with Adrenal Glands as well. Good use of Burrow there for Scarlett. That's very frustrating for Snute to worry about in this phase in the game. I just kind of feel that Snute is slowly but steady just bleeding to death, man. There's just almost nothing going his way. Scarlett has played this phenomenally. She's really good when it comes to controlling this kind of army and situation, I guess.
Scarlett's also now reducing her drone count a little bit, and I think that's a really important step for her because she's got that momentum now. She's got a massive bank at nearly 10k. So freeing up some more supply just to pump out more units is just really allowing her to get quite a long way ahead. Snute is still up in army, but one more engagement, which we could be getting now, may spell the end. Couple of chain fungals trying to come down on these Corruptors. They are soaking them up like bosses though. Scarlett still can't seem to break this position by Snute, but just slowly chipping away at it.
But she is doing more than fine. Like, time is not her enemy, it's Snoot's enemy. Snute is the one that's pretty forward and is losing bases left and right. Scarlett is still moving forward, like you said, morphing more and more drones into static defenses. Now even getting a couple of drones behind enemy lines. That's kind of cute. This base is not even that important anymore for Snute, but I guess the last thing that you want is Broodlord shooting at you natural from a position that you can't possibly be engaged in anymore. I feel that this is pretty much the end. Only 200 gas left in the bank for Snute. He's obviously waiting for a perfect opportunity where maybe he can land those fungals and he can get the fight that he's looking for, but I'm afraid it's just a little too much for Scarlett.
Nice little poke in there by Snute. He picks off a couple of Broodlords, but that's like taking a bucket out of the ocean at this stage. Scarlett is just constantly flooding in with more units, more resupplies, running about as well with a good number of lings wherever she possibly can. And the static defense is just going crazy. To put this in perspective, Scarlett's got over 50 static defense structures on the map right now.
Yep, exactly 50, and she has 5 more going down. You know, why not? That's one way to use the 100 drones that you had once upon a time that were getting you all this money. And she's still looking so healthy. Like, this has been a pretty ongoing battle as we know it from the old days in Wings of Liberty, but she never really dropped in her bank. If anything, she's just getting richer and richer, while Snute is just collecting pennies right now, and it's not going to help him.
The only thing that is really keeping Snute in this right now is the fact that he's got those 24 Corruptors. And that's preventing the Broodlords from just flooding on over, but it is just buying him time, and that's not something that Scarlett really cares about. She can wait as long as she wants and just slowly edge forward, build another wave of static defense, edge forward again, another wave of static defense, and Snute can't really answer that. Add in the fact that Snute's broke and is nearly mined out, I think everywhere apart from one base, he lost this center base, means that he's in a huge amount of trouble.
Looking at this gives me the confirmation that Scarlett would also be an excellent Terran player. The way that she's leapfrogging with these sport crawlers, if those were tanks Madals, it would be very intimidating as well.
She's not leapfrogging them, she's just building more.
Yeah, I guess. GG is called, and Scarlett, perhaps a little surprisingly, takes out Snute 2-0 here at the Foreign Hope that is brought to you by